Section 8.5, Law of Signs. We're going to learn why we're using this and how to do it. So make sure that you have the formula written down. And the first thing I want you to notice is, what kind of a triangle is this? Is it a right triangle anymore? No. So all the stuff that we've learned so far has to do with right triangles, which is trig, sine, cosine, tangent. Now you'll notice this has trig in it, but we're using it in a different way. So that's why you want to make sure that first you look at the triangle to see what it's doing or what kind of triangle you have. Then we'll look at how you actually complete it. So when you're looking at this formula, it has sine of A and it has a capital A. Then it has a small a underneath, sine of capital B over small b, and so on. First of all, you can only use two at a time. You can never do a proportion with three things in it and actually do something with it. You can only use two, and I'll show you why we're using two in a minute, because you only need two. Once you use two of these, you're going to cross multiply to find out for the thing that's missing. The third one doesn't mean anything. They just have them in terms of letters so that you know you can set up any of the sides, but you're, again, only going to pick two. How do you know what letters to use? Well, the trig part goes with the angle, and the side goes with the one opposite it. So the letters may not always match up with A's, B's, and C's. It might be X, Y, Z, or M, N, P, or something like that. So don't get really hung up on the letters. Look for opposites. The sign goes with the trig part. The opposite side goes on the bottom. Okay, so let's do one. I usually draw my triangle the same way. It doesn't matter if it looks like a right triangle, just don't put the square in there. I usually draw it like this, so that it doesn't look like a square, right triangle. So then I'm scanning through my numbers. I see that angle B is 93. I always put the biggest one right up here. That one is B. And notice the letters are A, B, C, so I'm just going to put an A over here and a C over there. So it says angle A is 48. And AC is 15. Now, I like to use a single letter. The book likes to use double letters. So AC, I would call this one B, like a little b. This one over here I would call A, and this one over here I would call C. And those are the small letters. The angles are the big letters. It just makes it less confusing when there's two letters in there, one letter in there versus two. So here's what we have to do. We have to figure out, how do we find the length of BC? That's this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the angle 48 with the A, and we're going to use two other ones. I need an angle and a side that are an angle side pair. Notice that these are an angle side pair. That's the one that I want to use. Okay, so I'm going to actually erase the letters I'm not using this time, because it makes it kind of confusing when there's so many in there. So on this one, I'm going to take the sine of angle B, so the sine of 93, divided by the one that is opposite it, which is 15, equals the sine of 48, divided by the one that is opposite that one, which is A. Okay, so I don't want to put that third one in there because it has all the parts missing. I don't know the angle and I don't know the side, so I don't want to do that third one because we don't need it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply. So the first part that I'm looking for is, can you set this thing up? Next thing is, do you know how to solve it? So you're going to get half for each of those. So I'm going to cross multiply. So I'm going to take 15 times the sine of 48. Remember, the angle always follows the trig part, equals A times the sine of 93. Now, if I solve for A, I need to divide by the sine of 93. That cancels, and I have to do the same thing over here. Okay, so grab your calculator. Let's see if we can put this in and get the same answer as I do. We're going to take 15 times the sine of 48 and divide it by the sine of 93. Make sure your calculator's in degrees. I get 11.2. A is equal to 11.2. Go to 1 decimal place. The book might say 2. I always go 1. Did anybody not get 11.2? Okay, I'm going to say if you ever don't get the answer that's in there, here's what you probably did, and I just want to point it out. When you type it in your calculator, it will give you a parenthesis here. You have to use the right parenthesis before you divide. Otherwise, what it does is it assumes that you're multiplying, you're taking 15 sine 48 sine 93 all at once, and you're not dividing by that part. Okay, so it assumes something different unless you enclose this one that's in the middle. You never have to do the one at the end. It just knows that that's the end one. So if you ever get it wrong or you're looking up your answer, that's probably what you did. And if you get half wrong on anything, that's probably what you did. Okay, so the next one says, in the above triangle, what's AB to the nearest tenth? So I'm going to shrink it down so I can draw my triangle again. Okay, and they want to know what AB is. So that's the side over here. It is opposite my angle C, so I'm going to call it C. And again, I got rid of what we already did. I just went back to the initial numbers that were given. So my angle side pair is 93 and 15. I don't have another angle to go with that angle C, but I could find it really easily. So what we're going to do is find that missing angle first. And we're going to take 180 and subtract 93 and also subtract 48 from it. So if you don't have that third angle but you need it, find it. The only thing you can't do is Pythagorean theorem to find missing sides. You can still use angles of a triangle though. So 180 minus 93 minus 48 is 39. Okay, then we're going to set up our law of sines. So I'm going to do B first. Sine 93 divided by the side that is opposite it, is 15, equals sine of C divided by side C. And I didn't plug it in, sorry. This should be a 39. Okay. Now, the last one, we set it up. I showed my work to get the answer. This time, I just want to see if you can plug it in yourself to get it. Because you don't have to show anything in between unless you need to. So what I do is I look for the cross product that I know both parts. So I'm looking at this one. So you always form an X. So I'm going to do this part first, and I'm going to divide by the part that is not in the circle. So it's 15 sine 39 divided by sine of 93. That's what I'm actually typing in. And I'm going to write it down, but usually I do not. And what did you guys get? 9.5 is correct. So C is about 9.5. Now, one other thing is when you're looking at this, you can kind of tell if your answer is right or wrong. Excuse me. 93 is the biggest angle in the triangle. Do you remember when we put these in order, smallest to biggest? And then we compared the sides, smallest to biggest. So if 93 is the biggest angle, 15 has to be the biggest side. So if you get something that's bigger than 15, you have done it wrong because everything else is supposed to be smaller than 15. So that's all I know is that it could be right. I know for sure that it's not wrong because it's not bigger than 15. If you had all three of them, you could kind of put them in order and see if that made sense, but we don't have all three, so we're just going to leave it like that. Now, in another scenario, what do we do when we're missing an angle? So that's the second one that we want to try. So it says R is 120. I always put that one up here, the biggest one. So I'm going to go R, S, T. RT is 11. ST is 18. They want to know that one. So I know that S and 11 go together, and I know that 120 and 18 go together. So keep them as opposites. So we're going to set this one up. Sine 120 divided by the one opposite, and sine of S divided by the one opposite. Now, would it matter if I had the sine S on the left and the 120 on the right, if I flipped the whole thing over? No, it doesn't matter which one you write as long as these are a pair and those are a pair. I could have the whole thing flipped over and it would still be okay. So when I do this one, I just want you to notice something quick. We're going to multiply these two first and then divide by 18. But notice when I'm done, I still have a sine S left. So we do need to figure out what to do with that. So this one is sine S equals 11 sine 120 divided by 18. So let's find out what the decimal is for that. Okay, and I'm going to go 3 places. So I'm going to go sine S equals 0.529. Doesn't that seem kind of weird for an angle? Because we haven't really found the angle yet. So when we have to cross that sign through the equal sign, what happens? Perfect. Yep. So we're looking for the angle. So it becomes inverse sine. Try that. Second sine, 0.529. Then it should look like an angle. Okay. And then the other number's a 5. So I'm going to round it up to 32. So 32 degrees. Normally you do have a decimal point. This one rounds up kind of twice. Now, I want to do this one more time and show you how I do mine because I don't like writing down this extra stuff if I don't have to. So type in 11 sine 120 again, divide by 18, and just have that big number on your screen. So 11 sine 120 divide by 18, and just hold that number on it. It should be 0.529 with a bunch of numbers after it. So instead of writing it down and only typing in the 0.529, I want you to, let me type mine in just a second. 11 sine 120 divided by 18. I want you to hit second sine and call up the answer. Do you remember the answer key is like down here somewhere? If it's above the little, is it above your subtraction key or your decimal point? Where do you see it?
It's like the negative sign.
Okay, if it's above it though, right?
Yeah.
So go up and hit second and hit that negative sign again, which calls up the previous answer. And mine just says ANS on it, which means the answer that you had in your calculator before is in there. We just don't have to retype the whole thing. Hit equals. Do you get the same answer? It should be 31.95, whatever. Okay, so yours might have just changed the sign. It didn't get negative. Okay, go back up and type it in. Oh, you have to go like this. Go second sign. No, second sign first. And then second answer. And then hit equals. Okay, and I think it got deleted out of there, so go back in and type in that 11 number. 11 sine 120. Divided by 18 equals. Hit second sign, second answer, Okay. So, anybody else not get that?
I got it, but I can't do
No, I do parentheses and then divided by, then put in the other one that ends it though.
Oh.
Parentheses, there we go. Divided by, yep, 18.
Oh, well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna say, when you put divided.
It does the 120 divided by 18 first.
Okay.
Okay, everybody get it? Okay, so that's what I do because I absolutely hate going, what was that number again that I just had in there? It remembers it. So even if you clear your screen, it will remember it. Put it back in that way. You can certainly just do the 3, but don't do 1 because it will turn out something different. Make sure you go at least 3 decimal places before you do second sign. Second sign of 0.529 is different than second sign of 0.5. They're not close. I would do as many decimal places as you can. So let's do one more of those. So KLM, and again, my triangles all kind of look the same. It doesn't really matter. And my angle is 105. And that's angle L, so I'm going to go KLM. KM is 14. LM is 9. So my angle side pair is 105 and 14. And the one I'm looking for is the angle K, which goes with the 9. So I'm going to go sine of K over 9 equals sine of 105 divided by 14. Okay, and I'm going to cross multiply, which means that I'm putting in this part first. I'm going to divide it by 14, but I still have that sine K left that we have to do something with. So sine K equals, I'm typing in 9 sine 105 divided by 14. And I get 0.621. Second sign of that answer is 38.4. So type that in if you didn't get it last time, just to make sure you know what you're doing. 38.4 degrees. Now, I also want to bring your attention to this. If you do just sine of 0.621, what do you get? Just do, instead of here going second sine, if you just do sine of 0.621, don't you get like a super small number? Like, yep, super small. Does that look like an angle? No. So when you're looking at it, this book is never going to give you an angle that is less than 1. Normally, it's not even really near it. So if you know that you're looking for an angle, it should be like more substantial than a small decimal. So even though in real life we could get an angle that's that small, here they're not going to give us those. So that should be a clear hint about, is my answer right or is it wrong? Again, if you slide that sign through the equals, it becomes a -1. If you divide by it, it does not become a -1. It's when you're looking for the angle that you use inverse sign. So angle -1 key. Okay, so this last one, they are looking at a ship has been at sea longer than expected, has only enough fuel to safely sail another 42 miles. There's 2 places that they could sail to, Port City Lighthouse and Covetown Lighthouse. They're about 40 miles apart, but right now he can't tell how far they are from him. So they formed a triangle. And what we're looking for is one of those closer than the other, and it's going to be. It has to be under 42 miles. So the first thing I notice is I don't have an angle side pair, but I could find one, right? If I subtracted those angles from 180, I could find that angle that's missing. So 180, subtract 70, subtract 52. So that's what I'm going to do first. And I find out that this is 58. I now have my angle side pair that I'm going to use twice to find out what is missing. So sine of 58 divided by its opposite side, which is 40, and then pick one. Which one do you want to do first? I'm going to do this one first. Sine of 52. And I'm going to say divided by c for cove. We're going to cross multiply. 40 sine 52 divide by sine 58. This one goes first. This one we don't have to use second sine because it's just looking for an angle or a side. So 40 sine 52 divided by sine 58. 37.2. Yep, that's what I got too. And it's miles. So right here, 37.2. We also have to do it again using the other one. So now I'm going to use these two and this one. Sine 58 divided by 40 equals sine 70 divided by P for Port City. So 40 sine 70 divided by sine 58. And I'm getting 44.3 miles. Which port are they going to make it to? Look at the actual picture though. Are they going to make it to Port City or Cove Town? Port City, right? So even though the Cove Town goes with 37, that doesn't mean that's how far it is. You're going to go to this one right here because it's a shorter distance, because you'd go from here to there. Oops, that's not writing. Okay. I don't know what happened here. Let's see. See if it can come back up. Let's open it again. Okay, so this distance would be the one that they can do. So you're actually going to go to Port City. If you went the other way, you might run out of gas and then you'd have to float in, and the current may not be going the way that you want it to. So that's kind of an example of using trig in real life. And they probably do something like that. However, they don't have to calculate it on paper. They can probably say, how far is it to Port City and how long is it going to take me? They have stuff they can use, computer screens and all things like that. They probably have some sea GPS, like we have like land GPS. So there's things that can be a lot different, but that's what we're looking at there. I'm going to just get this one set up for you. The right fielder fields a softball between first base and second base. If the right fielder throws the ball to second, how far does she throw the ball? So this distance right here, I'm going to call it X because I don't want to use numbers. Do we have an angle side pair on this one? 60 would go with the right fielder. 68 would go with this one. And 40 would go with that one. So we don't really have one, but that doesn't say we can't find one. I'm going to find this angle first. 180, subtract 68, subtract 40. And you get 72. So now I'm going to plug that in. So now here is my angle side pair. Sine 72 over 60, and then I'm going to do sine 40 over x. So make sure you show the setup on each one of these. From here, if you want to show work, you can. If you don't need to, you're going to take 60 sine 40, divide by sine 72, and the answer is going to be about 40.6 feet. So definitely easier when you're looking for a side, a little bit harder when you're looking for an angle. But if you get something super small, just remember that you probably should have used second sine instead, and you can just recalculate from there.